Hey guys, it's been about 8 months since my last Q&A and I've gained more than double the amount of subs I had at that time, so I'd figure I'd do another and just see how it goes. I made a community post, which I do often, so always check out for those, and you guys dropped a couple questions which I'm going to answer now. Again, drop any questions you still might have in the comments, no matter what it is or what it's about. I'm always trying to be 100% completely transparent about my opinions, about this channel, about me, about everything. So our first question is from long-term subscriber Sanjeev, who asks what my thoughts are on fixing legal digital ownership, and honestly, I have no idea. There are places and ways to own things digitally, like collecting codes from physical purchases or purchasing on Amazon, but in general, I always just feel like digital ownerships of all kinds are very fragile. I mean, online servers are about as reliable as streaming services, and putting things onto hard drives, which I also do, is great for storage, but is also way more susceptible to corruption and things of the like. I prefer physical for a million reasons, but I have loads of videos about that, so I'm not going to go into it. But as for fixing it and making it more accessible and trustworthy, I truly don't know. Our next question comes from Kashmir, who asks what movies do I think warrant a sequel, and this is one that could cover a whole video, which I may actually do at one point, so I'm just going to narrow it down to like 3. Starting with The Nice Guys, which is a generally agreed upon pick. It's an incredible action comedy which includes possibly Ryan Gosling's best comedic performance and also Russell Crowe cruising his way through some of the wittiest and naturally funny dialogue ever written in his favor. It's a shame Shane Black will never get to do a sequel for this, since it bombed due to a lot of factors that were out of his hands, but it'd be funny to get more buddy comedies out of this series. My second pick would be Dungeons and Dragons from last year. It was another box office bomb, but it was undeniably fun. I recently rewatched it and reviewed it in a roulette review, and I just think that this world has a great amount of potential, and this cast has serious chemistry. Is an all-time relaxing movie with some good comedy, good tension, nice effects, and a tongue-in-cheek feeling. And lastly, my most controversial pick, Power Rangers from 2017. Now, there was a sequel planned for this, but after the response and the box office, I just think that sequel is dead in the water. It's pretty much confirmed for sure, but I think it was a super underrated movie that got dookied on, for one, being a Power Rangers reboot, which is just silly in general, and 2, looking kind of ugly. But man, this movie is so much fun, and the cast had such beautiful chemistry that I think is genuinely the best out of any Power Rangers group ever. I think we severely missed out on a very fun franchise, and that kind of hurts me. Right, next question is from G Chamberlain, who asked for advice on speaking into a mic and general recording stuff, and to help, I looked out, because as someone who has a background in making music, handling vocals of all kinds was just part of the job. The best advice I can give is genuinely look into videos on EQing and mastering vocals for songs, especially rap vocals. The lessons are very transferable, and you can do this to some degree in any program. But on a personal note, you should email me here, and I'd personally like to help you out with anything that I can, and I'd like to help you find your feet if you need it. Next question, or set of questions, is from friend of the channel DCS Media, who firstly asked what my favorite musical is, and this is the one I've been thinking about most for the past couple of days. There are so many on and off stage, but I think I'm just going to pick 3 movies. The first being Tick Tick Boom, which was the subject of the first ever video I made, which is no longer available, but still, it's an incredibly moving movie and fills you in on some very important history of theatre. It's the story of Jonathan Larson, who was the creator of Rent, the 11th longest running show on Broadway, and really gives you all the context which made him make that musical in the first place, which I think is super important, but also it fills you in on him as a person, who is massively interesting and has a heartbreaking story. It goes into the AIDS epidemic, it goes into so many different facets, and it's super unique. The format of the movie is unlike anything I've ever seen, so yeah, go and see it. My second pick is going to be West Side Story from Steven Spielberg. I know most people prefer the original adaptation, but there is just such a magic in the Spielberg film, and I think it's a genuine masterclass in directing, blocking, cinematography, and adapting a musical in general. It's insanely fun and heartbreaking, a gorgeous movie that deserves more of a chance. And finally, High School Musical, which I know is a silly pick, but I grew up on these movies. I love them, especially the first 2 installments, and I still watch them and have a great time now. They're super goofy and charming, the songs are unironically well written, and I listen to them in my general playlist all the time. His second question is, what are my quick thoughts on the Mad Max and Planet of the Apes franchises? And I should preface, I have only seen the new Mad Max movies. I haven't seen the original Mad Max run, but I do love the Legacy sequels, and I think they are some of the best action films I have ever seen. Furiosa is going to land very high on my end of year ranking, and once I complete the franchise, I may do a ranking. As for Planet of the Apes, it's one of my favourite franchises. Through all the highs and lows, it's always been very fun and filled with great performances. The Caesar trilogy is my favourite trilogy of all time, and I did a video on the new one, which I also think is pretty great. Top tier franchise in my opinion, it never plays it safe and is host to some of the most moving stories in sci-fi history. And his last question is, how do I feel about artists incorporating social topics into their work? And I'm of the opinion that all art is political, whether it's conscious or not, so I think adding social issues and topics into your work is an inevitability, so you may as well give it your own personal direction. Films are an excellent way to teach people, not just kids, about social issues and explain complex themes and states of being, circumstances, and everything in between, so it's not only something I think is okay, I think it's near necessary and beneficial. Art is the most accessible way to learn about foreign concepts or to educate people on topics, so yeah, I think it's fantastic even if it isn't always handled the best it can be. Then we have Scrambled, who asks what my favourite boutique label is, and though I own more Criterion than anything else, I would have to say Arrow. I love their transfers, I love their brand, their unique art styles, and the way they cultivate their collection is by giving largely unknown or obscure movies a release they wouldn't get anywhere else, but they also give great releases to more mainstream movies too. These are all my Arrows, not a huge amount but still. An honourable mention to Eureka for their Masters of Cinema collection, which I adore. Big Man Frankie asks what my editing process is like and what my motivation is, and for the first half of that question, it isn't crazy. I acquire through definitely legal means the entire movie of which I'm talking about and then just use the relevant moments for each topic that I'm currently talking about, but there is some nuances. I mean, you can't really use more than 10 seconds of a clip, even if it's just video with your commentary over it without getting copyright striked. I tend to cut every 4 to 7 seconds of a clip, and usually on a start of a sentence or emphasize word just to make the flow nice. I normally sit and just do the entire edit in one sitting because I'm a person where if I don't do it all there and then, I'll just never finish it. I have multiple videos I've half edited and never finished. As for what keeps me motivated, well, for one, I want this to be my job, and you can't half-ass something like this. You need to give it everything every time, else it'll just never work out, and consistency wins on this platform. And also, I just adore talking about movies. I don't always talk about the popular thing at the time. My last video was about the Spice Girls movie. I just always talk about what I want to, and I think that's important. Don't chase the numbers, because if your heart isn't in the content, then the numbers will never come. Moving on to Enchanted Essays, who's a huge friend of the channel, asks what is my favourite anthology series, and this is where I admit that I haven't seen many at all. I know personally you're a fan of the Insight No. 9 show, which I haven't seen any of, but for me it'd probably be either The Twilight Zone or Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities. Also, honourable mention to American Horror Story because it can be very goofy and crappy at times, but I do overall love a lot of the seasons in that show, and I'd love to do a video on it one day ranking them. And finally, we have a couple questions from another friend, JA Productions, starting with what is my personal favourite video, and I recently recorded a podcast with Disconnected where I go into this a little bit, so you can see that when that video finally drops, but for now I'll reiterate slightly what I said there, which is I don't know. Egotistically speaking, there's a lot. I love my M. Night videos a whole lot, my Past Lives video is a huge deal for me, my recently made The Ring video, my video on The Faculty, and I don't know, there's genuinely just a whole lot I love. There's also a whole lot I hate too, so there is that. I was thinking for a 3,000 subscriber special, I might do a tier list, like a live stream where I tier list every video I've made, but you know, I'm still playing around with that idea. I genuinely don't know. Secondly, he asked what's a film I wish I saw in cinemas on first release, including films from before I was born, and honestly, it would have to be either Avatar or Titanic. There's a lot of answers to this, of course, but the experience I had when watching Avatar: The Way of Water was absolutely religious, and I can't imagine what it would have been like when that first film dropped. It was something like nobody had ever seen before. And Titanic, I think, just speaks for itself. I recently rewatched it and it absolutely tore me to shreds. I cried for the whole last hour, and to experience that on opening night must have been a truly special moment. Plus, both of these are in the top 5 highest grossing films of all time, and the only 2 in that top 5 I haven't seen in cinemas opening night, so that would have been sweet. His next question is, what is a movie I love to hate? And being honest, I don't have one. If I hate a movie, it means I have no enjoyment of it, and it infuriates me, and I just don't even want to conversate about it. Whereas there are so bad it's good movies that I couldn't ever confidently say I love to hate, just because I don't hate them, you get me? So it's an awkward one to answer, but I will say I absolutely despise me time. Then he asks, what are my future plans for the channel? And honestly, again, I have none. I wanted to interview a director of a film I recently saw, but that fell through, and I don't have any ideas for new series really. I just want to carry on doing what I'm doing, pick up on doing live streams again, do another roulette review, and just keep it going. I want to grow and improve, and the only way I can do that is if I make content I love and people love the content I make. And lastly, how's my day? Well, currently it's Saturday at 5:30 in the evening, and it's going very well. I bought a bunch of Blu-rays, a bunch of posters, I've signed up for the gym, and I'm gonna try to get back into shape soon, so thank you for asking. And that rounds up all our questions. I hope everyone feels satisfied with their answers. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. Again, if you have any questions, drop them below for a possible future Q&A, and whether it's one you have an undying question about or not, as always, keep watching movies.